Welcome to the SIWIKE Podcast, the only podcast that shares the stuff you didn't know you needed to know about jobs, careers, and life. The SIWIKE Podcast, the stuff I wish I knew earlier.
Hi, everyone, and welcome to the SWIKE Stuff I Wish I Knew Earlier podcast. We're here with one of our guest hosts, Ghazala, again. And for today's topic, we wanted to get into mental wellness and dealing with adversity. So it's a very timely topic because a lot of folks in these COVID times are feeling the stresses and anxiety that's associated with it. And for me, I mean, I never really thought of it when I was growing up, right? So maybe as a kid, you're not paying attention to the things around you. But I never really thought about it until I guess when I started work, right? I got hit with a bit of, I guess, burnout after I graduated, and then after a couple other projects and things like that, and then now I have more actively got into it. But I'd love to hear kind of your story and a little bit of insights from you in terms of how your mental wellness journey started out and then maybe how it got to where it is now.
Thank you, Luki, for having me here. It's such a pleasure. And coming to mental wellness, as you said, while growing up, I also never thought about, like, I didn't know what mental wellness meant. Uh, I don't know if it's the same for everyone my generation. Maybe we didn't talk about these things when we were kids, because the only health that we knew was like fever, or sometimes when you pretended fever because you didn't want to go to school.
Yeah, I don't
But
think it's a common topic that most kids talk about it. It's like,
right.
well, you'll ask, how are you feeling? I'm feeling good, but that's about the extent of mental wellness that we share.
For sure, yeah. So I never thought about mental wellness, and then I moved to like boarding school when I was very young. And even in the boarding, we were like, we had so much fun with friends, and everything was just so nice. It was a fairy tale thing. We never thought about it. Although in the university, I think I had a couple of friends who would talk about being anxious or being sad at times, but I think at that time we always thought, oh, it's just teen life, and then you're going through relationships and breakups and things like that. And it just, mental wellness was just that part of it. Like depression was only that part, and we never knew anything beyond that. But as I grew up, I realized that this was something very real. Like, there were people, like, if somebody is going through depression or something, it's not like uh, you would know it by the face of it.
Sure.
Like, they look normal, regular, like us. Even when like, if I'm in depression, doesn't mean I can't smile or I can talk. So that's when it started to hit.
Yeah, I think for me, the first bout, and I don't want to call it the depression or anything, but I know in first year of university, it was pretty rough for me. So I was kind of a
Mhm.
shy, introverted kid, and I was supposedly smart in high school, right? I was like a gifted kid, and usually in university, they prepare you for like you're gonna go down a grade point. So I had A's going in, so I was expecting to get B's in some of my first courses, I almost failed. Right. So that kind of put me on a spiral downwards where again, I don't call it necessarily depression, but for those probably a couple of days, a week or so, I might have actually been depressed, right? Um,
Right.
because it was kind of a blow to my ego, and then somehow I crawled out of that, probably through the help of friends or maybe just kind of de-stressing or whatever. Yeah, and then I didn't encounter it again until probably like my first big work project where I was kind of lead of it. My first kind of real travel project, and I burnt out. Right, I was trying to prove myself a little too much, and it was a pretty stressful time there. And yeah, those are kind of the two big ones that I remember. And then another one when I was in kind of my first real leadership role, where I had kind of an entire team and like a whole practice area underneath me. And yeah, again, it's more on the burnout side than the mental wellness, because I just try to go too hard, and then by doing that, it kind of tax myself from a physical perspective, which led to a whole bunch of mental things, because they're both
Mhm.
quite intertwined there. Yeah, and I love to, if you kind of if you're willing to, I guess, share a little bit more details on kind of the kind of journey, or maybe some of the first instances where either you encountered it or you talked to other people around you about kind of their mental wellness challenges?
Yeah, of course. So two things that you talked about. One is, sometimes you're just overworked, overstressed because of work and things.
Mhm.
So some amount of stress is really, really important.
Sure.
Like you cannot really eliminate stress out of your life, right? So some amount of stress is very important to motivate you to do what you're doing,
For
to
sure.
be just anxious of, to push you to do things, right? But when that stress goes above a point, then it starts to affect your physical health as well. Like
For
it's
sure.
not just mental, then it gets intertwined, it starts affecting you. For example, I don't know if you can recall the last time you were like very anxious or
Mhm.
angry. You would remember that your chest was heavy, your shoulders are heavy, your neck is hurting,
For
right?
sure.
So, and then you're like choking at times. So these are all like physical manifestations of stress. And I never quite realized it until I was like young, because these are like, oh, this is like happening something, and just anxious for 2 weeks, and then you're like out of it. But the first time it happened with me when I did my high school again, as you said, and then I was giving some entrances for like exams for engineering. And then I was also like a very bright kid. So everyone thought, oh, she's going to qualify like the top institutions in the country and things like that. And then I could not. So it was exactly a blow to my ego, what do you call
Right.
it? It was that thing, right? And then I was so low at that time. And when you're kids, and especially I want to, if they're like school grads or kids who are listening to us, I want to call out to them, because when you're kids, you're just so influenced by the movies and the dramas that we see, the web series that we see. And we only think of extreme steps, right?
Right.
So I remember particularly this conversation with my friend. Like she was very close to me and she also didn't qualify. And we were like sitting, both of us together, and like, you know what? I don't see a way out. Like,
Mm.
I don't want to see my parents. I don't want to show my face to them. So should we just like call it, like, quit? So it was that extreme. But at that time we didn't know what it is, because we never studied about it in college. We never studied about mental health, mental wellness. It was not a talk of the town like it is now,
Sure.
which I'm so glad it is, because
Yeah, I
at
think it's.
least people. Yeah, you're
Go ahead.
saying.
Go ahead.
Yeah, so it's something. Now I'm so glad that I talk about mental wellness with my younger siblings or with the new grads that are in college right now, because they understand, okay, whatever they're going through, it's normal. Everyone goes through this and they can come out of it. It's not like it's the end of the world, right?
Yeah, I think it's so important to start normalizing these conversations, because
Mm-hmm.
a lot of people talk about like mental wellness as if it's like, well, mental illness, and then we talk about mental wellness and mental health. So nobody like bats an eye or even thinks about it when you go to the doctor because you have a cut, you broke your arm, you're feeling sick or whatever. But there's this stigma attached to, well, I'm depressed, I'm anxious, I'm stressed or whatever. Like, well,
Mm-hmm.
what do you mean? Just suck it up, just deal with it, right? Is some of the mentality out there. But I think to your point where, like, I mean, as much as all these feelings are in your head, it's very real for the people that are feeling them. And sometimes it's almost like you can't get out of it. Sometimes it manifests in physical symptoms too, which makes it even worse. And I think it's important for us and other folks out there to normalize the conversation and realize that it's just part of being human, right? We all go through it. As much as some people portray themselves as kind of the perfect people, and they've graduated, they got into every single school they wanted, they get every single job they want. It's like, well, it's a very small portion of the population that actually
Mm-hmm.
does that. Most of us fail in one way or another, and they mess up, they screw up, but they pick themselves up and then they grow and learn from that. Because I can reflect back to say, like, well, that was a horrible experience at the time, but it makes for a great story afterwards, right? And a lot of great learnings where I can share with others to say, you know what, this was me. I was just like you, and it does get better. And the quote, this too shall pass comes to mind. So I'm glad that you're starting to kind of bring that conversation out, and talk to us a little bit about how like that wellness organization started up, how you brought that into fruition.
Oh, so till university, it was all like, oh, talking to friends and then helping them out with their like little issues, whatever we had. Like the major issues that we have during student life are like, I would say studies, of course,
Okay.
because like not getting good grades or like parents' expectations. So those are like things that you are very particular about that depress you, I would say. And then it's relationships, because obviously university, you can like be out of that spiral. So
Mhm.
that's something very real for students. Like I get so many of my clients right now who talk to me, like my mentees, and they're worried about like they're so stressed out because of their relationships. And I think these were the two major things that were in university. But at that time, it was just supportive friends and you just come out of it. But once I graduated and then I started doing, like, I entered into banking, that was something entirely different, of course, not
Mhm.
related to wellness at all. But I was always in touch with different people. I would try to counsel them, coach them on what's happening. Like, I never pursued it as a profession, but I was always a part of that community. But eventually, when the COVID thing hit, like last to last year. So I know it's a long time. So in 2020, I realized around January, I would say January and February, when people were stuck at home and there was like, all of a sudden everyone was in a panic attack sort of a situation,
Sure.
and they were so stressed out, and especially because of the financial losses. Because I was taking care of, like, I was in banking at that time, and a lot of people talked to me about their finances. Like they
Sure.
thought I was a safe space for them, or they confided in me for their financial needs or like financial advice, I would say. And when they talked to me about it, they were so stressed out. They were so anxious. And I was like, I need to do something about it. So
Sure.
then I started talking to one of my doctor friends, because I was never into like medical field, right? I didn't want to jump into something professionally when I have no clue about it. So I talked to one of my friends, she's a doctor, and I told her, this is what I'm looking forward to. And I really want to help people out there. And she was like, oh, this is a great idea. Even I've been thinking about it. And then we too talked about it. And she's like, you know what? I can take care of the physical part of it. And you can talk about the mental counseling and things like that, right? And that's where this wellness studio idea came up from.
That's amazing. And what are some of the common areas of mental wellness, mental stress, and all that sort of stuff that these programs help? So your doctor friend helped with some of the physical symptoms. So I don't know if you
Yeah.
could speak to just probably at a high level in terms of what she might have talked about. And then on your side, what are kind of the key things that you might have dealt with? Because I know for students, there's a lot of things like imposter syndrome, right? So there's so many smart people around me, and like, do I even belong here? There's a lot about
Yeah.
doubting yourself, like
True.
your
Mhm.
self-worth. Like, I mean, should I, can I meet the expectations of mom and dad, of my family, my culture, and stuff like that? Because we're all expected to be like perfect human beings, that sort of thing. And then we talked a little bit about overwhelm as well, because of all these stresses and pressures that are there, and then the ultimate kind of fear of failure, right? Because you're also, everyone's supposed to get an A, right? They're not supposed to get an
Mhm.
F and fail, right? So that's definitely a black mark. So there's that. So what are some of the things that you would help from a mental wellness perspective, similar to
Yeah.
those?
So obviously for students, as you said, there's a lot of like pressure from your peers. And
Mhm.
it's not only students, I would say with working professionals as well. And especially in the age of social media that we are, when everyone is like posting stories on Instagram and on Facebook. And you know what? Nobody posts the bad times that they're going through.
Sure.
Everybody just posts all the good times that they have. Like, you take 40 selfies and the best one, you put that up. You don't
Yeah.
put the 39 ones that didn't come good, right? So they always put the best parts of you. And when you are on the other side of the screen, like when you're watching those posts, you are looking at the worst side of you, and you're comparing both of them, like the best side of someone and the worst side of you, and that's where the problem starts. So a lot of clients that I'm dealing with is with this problem, like they're always comparing themselves and then doubting themselves. That's what you said, like the self-talk, telling, oh, I'm not worth it, like how are these people so good, why am I not there, right? And the other thing that I was focusing a lot on, and we too were focusing a lot on, are the females. Because the women have been really, really horribly hit by this pandemic, not just physically, like everyone is hit that way, but emotionally and mentally, because a lot of female workforce was in like hospitality industry, or say, so like hotels, and then restaurants, a lot of people working, and a lot of industries which have been hit really hard due to the pandemic, and they've been forced to sit back, or maybe they have been forced to sit back because their children are at home now and they can't go to school, so they need someone to take care of them, and the females were the one who were earning lesser than the males, so the males are still working and the females stayed back. So this is something very recurring in what I'm seeing. So they have been hit very, very hard. A lot of domestic violence cases as well, unfortunately. So these are the things that I've been focusing a lot on. And because I have a background in the finance side of it as well. So with the females, I try to counsel them not only on the emotional and mental health part of it, but also the financial. Because when you talk of wellness, like I don't do counseling basically, because it's a psychologist's work, it's not my work. So I do coaching, and when I talk of wellness coaching, it has like 8 different realms to it. So there is financial, you have spiritual, you have physical, you have mental, you have emotional, so all the different aspects of it. So this is what I've been catering to mostly.
That's amazing. And what some of what you said that I reflected on. So you mentioned about the Instagram posting. So I tend to deal with more the career world, but that still manifests itself on LinkedIn, where you get posts as, oh, I'm so happy to announce that I'm just joining so and so company. But nobody ever posts I got rejected again from another, because in order to get that one job, they apply to like 99, 100 different postings, and they don't post those other 99, right? So people feel kind of skewed in terms of the good compared to their own bad stuff. And so we talk about things like comparison and some of the kind of gender specific or more focused ones. What are some things that people could do if they're encountering that? So let's talk about the comparison side. What are some of the suggestions that you give for folks if they're overly comparing themselves, or in that situation where they're doubting themselves and they're not worthy and stuff like that? What are some suggestions you have for them?
Yeah. So 2 things that I always tell my clients to do is, 1, stop your social media. I know it's not possible to completely stop it, but whenever you look at a post, don't take it like literally, personally, and don't start comparing it to yourself. Because whenever you see a post on LinkedIn saying, "Oh, I'm thrilled that I'm joining McKinsey as blah blah blah,"
right?
They have literally, like, just go to their profile and see on what all they have commented and liked, and see their the experience that they have, and you would see like a 6 months gap or something, and you would know that they were struggling to get this for the past 6 months. So it's not like that they have just landed this is not overnight. They were in the position that you are in right now just the night before.
For sure.
So always think it of that way. Like, don't take it literally. Just maybe think about it, reflect on it. That's one thing. And the other thing that I tell, and which is very potent, I tell you, like I've been doing it with me and it really works, is talk to yourself all the time. Not only like take out a time and sit with you and talk, but all the time, whenever we are doing anything, even right now when I'm talking to you, there are certain things that's going in our head, like all the time. We're talking to ourselves. We are giving ourselves some narrative. That's what you call self-talk, right?
Sure.
So if your self-talk is negative, then God bless you. It's because you know what? The maximum amount of influence that we have, whatever actions that we take, is because of what we tell ourselves.
For sure.
We always tend to tell ourselves, oh, I'm not good enough for this, but I'm very good at a certain thing. And eventually we start to get good on that thing and bad on the other, because that's how we have been telling about us.
Sure.
So always talk to yourself, tell yourself, if nobody out there in the world is there for me, which I'm sure is not the case, right? But even if there's nobody out there in the world, then I am there for me, at least.
For sure.
That's the bare minimum that you can do. And when you have that support, when you give yourself that support, you can really do wonders.
Yeah, and what comes to mind when you provide those suggestions is for me, I find that meditation and mindfulness exercises help because in order to catch yourself in that moment of before you compare and with that LinkedIn or that Instagram post or that whatever, you have to actually stop and be present. And I find that meditation and mindfulness actually help you be more aware to before you kind of go down that downward spiral of, oh my gosh, I'm not good enough. You have to say, wait, let's think about that thought and really become that observer of your thoughts, and understanding that you are not your thoughts, you're the observer of your thoughts, and those thoughts came from somewhere, and you want to figure out, well, where did they come from, and are they true, are they helpful, and all that sort of stuff. And I use a model which I call the Saint FAR model, which is an acronym where STFAR. So S is stimulus, which means something happened, right? So that LinkedIn post, the Instagram post, or someone made a comment. T is your thought. So you thought of something, right? Sometimes it's automatic, sometimes it's purposeful. And then usually that thought triggers a feeling. So that's the F part. And that feeling leads to an action and a result, right? And oftentimes that feeling, if it, as you mentioned, is either good or bad, then that each results in a good or bad action, which often results in a good or bad result, right? So if you can kind of focus on that thought in a moment and help turn that negative or potentially negative into, well, what can I do about it? Or does this actually matter? Or what do I want to happen instead? Then you take more control and you can actually do something and have a little bit more kind of mental wellness and fortitude in that regard. So yeah, I think those points are super helpful to get off social media if you can, or not necessarily get off, but reduce your time, right? So don't spend as much time. I actually find that getting away from,
at least like when you just wake up, and the moment we wake up in the bed, we start our day with like scrolling through Facebook and Insta and LinkedIn. So that's something we can really, really avoid, and especially also just before sleeping. So at least reduce it like half an hour before you sleep, because even when you lie down, your body lies down, your mind is still like racing with the thoughts that you just put in. So it's very important. Like these are the few things. And then one of my mentors told me something very funny, but it just clicks. So whenever you're thinking like something bad about you, or you're like doubting yourself or something, just tell yourself loudly, oh, shut up. I don't want to hear that. But it works, honestly, because it just gives you that time to stop and reflect what you said.
Yeah, I think someone else told me, well, something a bit similar, where all those negative thoughts that are in your head, actually say them out loud and ideally record it and then listen to it afterwards, because you'll hear how ridiculous some of these things are. And oftentimes, like, you would never say these things to like your worst enemy, let alone to your friend, let alone to yourself, right? So it's a lot of stuff where people are so hard on themselves for no reason. And I'm guilty of that too. And I still experience it as much, but I'm working on it, and slowly but surely I'm getting better and better and better at it. And it's one of those things where there's kind of a tendency there where if you start with those negative thoughts, you tend to have more negative thoughts. But there's a threshold where if you have enough of the positive thoughts or the helpful thoughts, then you'll start moving towards the positivity, and then the negativity will still be there, but hopefully happen a little bit less. So what are some other techniques or useful guidance that you would like to share for folks that are listening?
Yeah, so I was just coming to that. So the other day I was talking to a group of women, and I told them, oh, can you write like 3 things on the top of your head that you love dearly?
Okay.
Like just 3 things. So they wrote like my kids, someone wrote my parents, things like that. But no one wrote their own name. Not one person out of 40 people. But I said to them, you should be the first person you should love. Then only you'll be able to give it to others, right? If you don't even care for yourself, how are you going to care for others? And then one more trick that I was just suggesting to one of my clients is, so she's a lady, and she's like, she's a professional. She's a corporate lawyer, actually. And she's like so overstressed with her work all the time. And you know how in lawyers and things like that, they're very competitive when it comes to their rivals and like, other lawyers in the fraternity and things like that. And she was so burnt out. She was like, I have no friends. I have no one who can pamper
No.
me and take care of me and things like that. And you know what I told her? I was like, you know what? Today, when you go back home, just scroll through your Amazon or something, or Myntra or whatever, like an online app, and gift yourself something that you would want a friend to gift you. Just gift yourself something, and then book yourself a spa and pamper yourself for a day. Because it's so important. Like, we always want to treat our friends, our family really good. We want to give them things. We want to make them feel loved and happy and special. Then why not do the same thing for us, right?
For sure. Yeah, what comes to mind is that typical like airline analogy where put your mask on
Yeah,
before you
before
put
helping
others.
others. Yeah,
Yeah,
so
so
true.
it's one of those things about like in order for you to kind of fill up the cup of others, your cup has to be full first. So take care of yourself first and foremost. So yeah, a little gift if that's something that you'd appreciate. Pamper yourself at a spa, although like I don't know if we can do that in, in COVID.
I
But
know, but yeah, like, do something
mhm,
just to make yourself feel special. Don't wait for others to make you feel special. Rather, make yourself feel loved and special. If
yeah.
that's what you're craving for, right? If that's what's causing you anxiety or stress or whatever.
Yeah, and what I'm getting from all this too is have a conversation. So reach out to someone that you feel has your back, has your best interest in mind. That could be a family, that could be friends, a coworker or a colleague, someone that you can reach out to and say, you know what, I need help, right? Because sometimes people are scared to ask for help. Again, part of what we talked about before is like, I'm perfect, I have to do all this stuff myself. But no, we're all going through it. And some people don't express it outwardly, but I think more people should. So hopefully this gives some people a little bit more courage to kind of get out there and have conversations with other folks so that they can kind of spread the positivity and the mental wellness and kind of help each other out in kind of these difficult times. So
Yeah,
uh,
and just one more thing that I want to add before I end this, because it just came to my head. When you talk of help, it's seeking support from family and friends. That's one part of it, and another one is delegation of work.
hmm,
It's
okay.
so important, because especially when I talked about that, I'm talking to a lot of females these days, like a lot of women, and a lot of people take all the load onto themselves, especially in Asian countries.
Mhm.
Maybe this is how it is, and they don't want to ask their kids or their husband, or like even their parents-in-laws or whatever, to do the chores, and they take up upon themselves the responsibility of every person in the household.
Mhm.
So just learn to openly communicate what you're feeling. It's not necessary to, I mean, it's so important to say no sometimes.
Right.
Don't always be a yes or a pleasing person. Just
Yeah.
say, oh no, I just have too much on my plate. I can't do this. And it's not selfish, believe me. It's the most selfless thing you can do, because because if you do that, you're just saving them from taking care of you when you're anxious or stressed out, right? Think of
Sure.
it that way.
I think
So
that's
just
great advice. Yeah, because for me, one thing that comes to mind is that when you say yes, then you're basically saying no to everything else.
exactly.
And the other corollary to that is when you say no, then you could potentially say yes to anything else, right? And there's so many other things that could potentially better serve your time. And yeah, I think that makes sense. And the delegation or learning to delegate, I think, is an important skill, especially as folks kind of mature or move up the corporate ladder and stuff. That's one thing where like the CEO at a firm, they don't like create the reports, they don't do a lot of stuff, but they're the ones making the ultimate decisions, and sometimes that's why they get paid the big bucks, because then the rest of the whole company rests on those specific decisions, right? So if you can kind of make the decision and get the appropriate person to do it, sometimes it's yourself, sometimes it's someone else, and live with kind of those boundaries, then I think that'll help a lot of people
For
de-stress.
sure. Yeah.
Are there any other kind of clear ones, clear winners in terms of stuff that have helped you, or are there things that you tried and it didn't quite work out as much?
Yeah. So, like, I'm a person who cannot put a lot of effort into things, I would say. So things like, a lot of people tell you that, like the one example that you gave, like record your things and then listen to it. And I'm not a person who can do these things. I'm sure they're very effective, but not for me. So like
Sure.
for everyone, there are certain things which are effective, which are not. So if you're a person who can like give yourself time and record your things and listen to yourself, or maybe sit quiet and meditate, then amazing. Please do that. But if you can't, then like for me as a person, I cannot really sit down and meditate for like half an hour. I have never been able to do it. I tried, believe me, I tried so many times, but I've never been able to do it because my mind is like always rushing and racing through things. So what I do is I just found a shortcut that whenever during the day I'm thinking about something, I just stop for a moment and then I start to focus on whatever I'm doing at that time. Rather than sitting and making my mind blank, I just focus on whatever I'm doing and not think about anything else. So maybe that's just a sort of meditation for me. So it works for like every person has a different thing that works for them. So just I would say try, like hit and trial, but it's for you. Do it for yourself. So
For
whatever
sure.
works the best for you, just use that technique and work it out for you, but do take care of your mental health. That's so important.
For sure. Yeah, and one kind of clarification on the whole meditation and mindfulness is meditation isn't necessarily blanking your mind. It's to your
Yeah.
point, focusing on the present. So you are, as you said, you are meditating when you're focusing on what you're doing right now.
Yeah.
And a simple kind of tactic to do that is to focus on the mundane things. So every day we're all washing our hands, but when was the last time you actually felt the water on your hands, the slipperiness of the soap, and actually maybe the scent of it or whatever? When did we actually take the time to feel that? When you like open the door, when you wash the dishes or do your laundry or whatever, sometimes those mundane things, you can take a little bit of time and just be mindful and be present. And that can help you with a lot of this awareness later on in your life. So I think that's a great point. And you've almost like unconsciously trained yourself to meditate throughout the day
Yeah.
anyway. I think there's a lot of great information, and hopefully folks can pick one, right? They don't have to do all of them. Pick one and experiment and see how it works. And then if it works, keep doing it. If it doesn't, pick another one and do that. But are there any other ones that you'd want to leave the audience with?
Yeah, of course, physical exercise is one,
Right.
which obviously helps a lot because scientifically it releases the endorphins in your body when you exercise, like all the dopamines and things. So do work out, it's important. I'm not saying like go on a treadmill and run or whatever, but just maybe walk around the block a mile or something, and then eat healthy, which is again very, very important. And one more thing that I want to point out, I think that I missed before is, we touched upon it a little bit, but maybe take time out and engage in something that you really, really like.
Right.
So like these days when people are working from home, I know there's a lot of boundary issues, like our work and home environment has completely diluted and we're working while in bed, we are sleeping while on the desk. so it's very important to create those boundaries. Sometimes I know it's not always possible, like it may be possible in theory, but I don't want to talk theory. Practically, sometimes you have to stretch your hours, you have to work late, you may have to like start work early, but whenever you're taking a break, like in the work from home setting, if you're taking a break, don't just keep sitting on the desk and scroll through your phone. Don't do that. Just get up, get out, maybe get in the sun for a while, get into the nature, and have meaningful breaks. That's what I would say. It's so important because when you are just meaninglessly scrolling through things and not doing anything, you are taking a break from work, but your mind is not at break.
Yeah, I think that's so important, and the
very
expression.
important.
Yeah, I think the expression that comes to mind is you're not doing too much, you're doing too little of what's important to you, right? So those little breaks and all that fulfills you and actually brings you joy. You want to do more of that. And if you do enough of that, then you can work long hours and you can sustain that. And it's very important that you called out the importance of physical health too, because there's such a mind-body connection that if you're not sleeping well, eating right, exercising, all that sort of stuff, then the rest of the mental stuff gets really hard. But yeah, thanks so much, Ghazala, for joining us and sharing all these kind of tips and tricks for mental wellness. And hopefully we'll have you back for a future episode.
Thank you. Thank you so much. It was a pleasure talking all about it. I just want to leave the audience saying that please do take the time to reflect upon your mental health and talk to your friends and family, especially in these testing times. Be there for each other and be kind to people. That's all I want to leave everyone with.
Yeah, and keep in mind that neither of us are medically trained professionals. So if you're really on the severe side, then go seek out medical help. But for most other folks, then give what we have a shot and see how it works out. So thanks, everyone.
Thanks for joining us on the SIWIKE Stuff I Wish I Knew Earlier, the podcast. If you like the podcast, please subscribe on iTunes, Stitcher, or wherever you found this podcast. And if you can give us a review, that would be very appreciated. Feel free to contact me on LinkedIn at Luki Danu, LUKIDANU, and the same on most social media platforms. And I look forward to hearing from you. Thanks. Bye.